All right, man. 2 years ago, I made this exact same video for what at the time was the craziest deadline ever. And now 2 years later, we're back again. Tuesday, we got the devastating news about Kyrie. And man, was it tough to hear, because Kyrie has become one of the more likable, professional players in the NBA. Prior to Kyrie joining Dallas, we know his availability always felt like a question mark. And since joining Dallas, that exact notion flipped, and it damn near flipped to his detriment. In my last video, I talked about Kyrie's minutes without Luka or AD, and I emphasized how I didn't like how he was abnormally used. Since the Luka trade, Kyrie was second only to Kevin Durant in minutes. Kyrie should never be that high. In fact, this season, in games playing at least 38 minutes a night, Kyrie's only behind two Knicks players, and we know that story, and Tyrese Maxey, who's played a lot without Joel Embiid and Paul George. Again, I understand that was a freak accident, but his workload just felt way too heavy. Kyrie now has a torn ACL, and obviously he's out for the remainder of this season and probably the majority of next year. Where exactly does that leave Anthony Davis? I've never seen a trade or a transaction, anything, get worse and worse and worse for what feels like by the day. Klay Thompson came there for Luka and Kyrie, and now they're both gone. One of the bright sides to Anthony Davis going to Dallas, to me at least, was how excited he sounded about playing with Kyrie, and now there's no Kyrie. The domino effect to one of the worst trades I've ever seen in life ever is actually insane, and what only could make this worse is if the Lakers somehow win the championship. But one man's alleged 270-pound trash is of course another team's treasure. The Lakers right now, to me, they're definitely the funnest, most intriguing team to watch. You could just tell Luka gave that franchise, that fan base, even LeBron, a spark that I don't think I've even seen from that team since they got Anthony Davis 5 years ago. Everybody thought this trade was for the future, but since they got Luka, they literally have one of the best records in the sport. Also, defense was supposed to be their biggest question mark with the 40-year-old LeBron and Luka sharing a lineup. But since they got Luka, and they had great stretches prior to Luka being there, but still, they've been surprisingly fantastic. Since they got Luka, they've held 7 of their 10 opponents below league average, and most of them have been well below league average. Okay, we knew their offense would likely be insane, but I don't think anybody foreseen this defensively. Since the trade, the Lakers have 3 players in individual defensive rating, and I know this is more of a team stat, but still, Luka doesn't even have his crazy eye-popping numbers yet, and he's definitely getting there, but still, you can see his impact on everybody else. The players that started the most games with Luka so far, look at their efficiencies with Luka. Even with the non-traditional Luka numbers right now, his impact is evident, and you can see it on the looks they're getting, how rejuvenated LeBron looks, and just collectively, the franchise looks revitalized. Oh, and Luka has the highest plus minus on the Lakers since joining that team. The Lakers have the 5th best record in the entire NBA, 2nd in their conference, and the Lakers currently have their highest winning percentile in the post-Kobe era since this. Jimmy Butler going to the Warriors. That's one that I can't lie, I really didn't see the vision at first, but I'm very happy I was wrong. Somewhat like Luka, Jimmy doesn't even have the sexiest numbers yet, and he may never have them. But what he's doing specifically for Steph is really what matters most to me. I showed in my last video how Jimmy has finally helped that team get to the line a little bit more consistently. But one thing I did underrate about Jimmy going to that team was his impact on their defense. Since the Jimmy Butler trade, Golden State has been the best defensive team in their conference. Also, now they grab some of the most steals and they force their opponents into the most turnovers. This has always been the recipe to Golden State's championships, defense first. And Stephen Curry, man, he just looks like a much more lively, fresher Steph, now having Jimmy Butler take some of that pressure off that man's shoulders offensively. He doesn't have to create every ounce of offense for that team anymore, and even statistically, you're seeing the results. Since Jimmy got there, Steph is only behind likely the MVP in points a night, and like Steph always is, he's the most efficient out of anybody in that bunch. Also, prior to Jimmy getting there, and this just shows Steph was nowhere near washed, he just needed a little less attention. In 42 games prior to Jimmy, Steph had made 5 or more threes 15 times. In his 10 games with Jimmy, he's done it in half the games. Last one, Since the Jimmy Butler trade, Stephen Curry has the best plus minus in the entire sport, and Draymond is now third. That's just not a coincidence. Jimmy Butler, Steph, and Draymond, they have a plus 12 net rating. 9-1 record with Jimmy. The defense looks rejuvenated. Prime Steph looks back. And unfortunately, Miami and Andrew Wiggins, they look pretty bad right now. I'll say this was a home run for Golden State. De'Aaron Fox going to the Spurs, that was also one of those bigger heavyweight moves. But we wanted to see D Fox and Wemby got hurt. Hopefully, Wemby comes back at full strength. This helps Stephon Castle's development getting more looks, and we can really grade this trade. But so far, De'Aaron Fox with Wemby looks like one player, and without Wemby looked like a completely different player. Zach LaVine started out pretty rough for Sacramento, but in his last 4 or 5 games, he has been slowly getting his rhythm back since they got Zach. And this is Sacramento, so they're not a championship contender, and I don't even know if they strive to be. But since they got Zach, they're only below the top 4 in the West. Also, Zach kind of has the reputation of playing empty calorie basketball that never really contributes to winning, but since he's been there, he has the highest plus minus on his team. And the NBA's best team right now, the Cavaliers, they just clinched a playoff berth a month before the season even ended. And at the trade deadline, they somehow stole DeAndre Hunter. I still don't really understand that one. Since that team got Donovan Mitchell, their most glaring weakness was always that wing small forward spot, especially in the East. And since they got DeAndre, let's see, they came back to beat Boston in Boston to tie the season series up at 2 games apiece, which to me was great for the psyche for a team like Cleveland. In the one game DeAndre actually played 30 minutes with Spider sitting out, he scored 32. They're undefeated since getting DeAndre Hunter. They have the highest point differential by far in that span, and that team just clinched a playoff berth in early March.
TNT captured you and Bud having an exchange. What was going on there?
Yeah, that's what usually happens when you don't know the dynamics of a relationship. You know, you catch something on TV, you get a quote, and now you pushing that narrative as if me and Bud don't do all the time. We competitive as 2 individuals who want to see things done the right way. And sometimes my way ain't the way that Bud want to do it, and vice versa.
I understand Kevin Durant downplayed it, and I understand these type of interactions, they can be common in sports. But it typically gets ignored with players and coaches that have some type of rapport. Not first-time head coach for the Phoenix Suns, Mike Budenholzer, and player that was just oddly shopped a month ago, Kevin Durant, and they're losing. Also, reportedly, Coach Bud told D Book to tone it down. So that's 2 odd incidents that we know of with his 2 best players. And since the trade deadline, when Kevin Durant was randomly put on the market for no apparent reason, look at the Suns' record. That team, they just feel broken, and it feels like the trade deadline made it even worse. If you guys like this video, Nico Harrison, bro, you gotta leave ASAP. Never in my life have I seen something quite like this. Follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys, and until next time, as always, stay tuned.